Hello, team. It's time for the Daily Detangler. Hello, hello. It's time for making toast. Catalyst drew his toast, and then I responded back with a bit of a detangler, and then he sent back some buckets, some buckets and some process steps, etc. So I thought I would learn by doing, and like he did, make toast live. So I'm gonna do, draw, and then share. And this is my blank canvas. Now, as I'm going to switch over here to kind of a blank slide. One of the things that I'm responding to is I'm going to grab my toaster, my toasting device. There was 3 buckets that the Catalyst put out. There was like 3 buckets, and one of those buckets was the idea of empathy. So when I responded back, I was talking about empathy and relatability. Then there was another bucket that he mentioned in my detangler where I was detangling him about architecture. And that was bucket 2. And then there's bucket 3, which is the idea of, content itself or tangles itself, the idea of tangles. All right, so those were the 3 buckets. And what he did was he published that out and he talked to me about it. So we had a conversation, which makes me think of the orb. So we had a people thing. And then from an information perspective, he chunked it out into those buckets, but then he also shared some direction. He said, hey, on bucket 1, let's park the idea of empathy. On bucket 2, we need more structure, which on one hand, and again, bucket 2 is this idea of architecture up here. On one hand, more structure sounds good. On the other hand, more structure, seems like heavy. But he's also talking about not making things heavy. So it's about chunking the information. So to me, is what I'm saying. And then 3, on the tangles themselves, he's offering help. He wants to help, which is awesome. That gives me a smiley face. Ooh. And makes me happy. And he wants to work on tuning the tangles themselves, which is cool. So that's kind of the information node. From a technology perspective, he used toasting as an example on Zoom. And I'm actually modeling that back right now by kind of trying to repeat back what I heard, and I'm also cheating. I'm I'm using the email itself, which has logic to it, even though it's the email is structured in a way that's vertically oriented. You can see that I'm processing this, I hope, through the lens of the orb. So I'm modeling this out, and I'm toasting on Zoom, and I'm actually going to toast back here. And then he came up with process. And on the process piece, there's seven steps. Now, when I first saw the 7 steps, I was kind of like, well, what are these 7 steps, right? So let me grab those 7 steps here and plop them in. So this was the process piece. Set up a 30-minute call. So I can look at this, two ways. I can look at this from it's gonna let me draw. Come on. What's happening? It's not letting me draw. Oh, because I'm not on. Okay. I can look at this in two ways. I can look at this as a set of tasks, set up a call, watch the conundrum, set up. So there's activities here, and then there's a why. So kind of a what and a why. And on the why side, I'm gonna borrow the highlighter here. What I didn't notice at first was, the why. I saw the front end of the tasks or the activities, and I'm like, wow, that's a lot of steps. But then I came back and I said, okay, it's 7 steps. Is that really a lot? What's my problem, right? What's my issue with seeing these steps? They aren't necessarily something I would do, but I got curious. I'm like, what is he doing? So first there was this aligned piece, right? The whys in the message and what your role is. So that's one thing. Then watch both, blah, 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 blah. And then update the conundrum site with better descriptions. So there's, some value add here that he's looking at. We'll connect the dots between those empathy conundrums and the request to help me improve how I encode information to Brian, which is interesting, right? Because on one of my detanglers, on a detangler, I had shared some comments around confusion I had. I was confused. Then on the learning by doing weekly call, I shared some observations around, toasting. And then on the when he responded to the learning by doing, I responded back. So there's some things that happened on it, kind of a process view, where I was asking, what process are we following? Trusting the process, what is it? So, and I'm realizing this is getting too detailed for, in a way, but I'm wondering if this is good or not, but as far as the detail. But so let me go back to this. So this is connections, architecture, capture what each group to organize what happened in this sprint and why it matters. So there's a why it matters. Please complete one through, yes. Okay. So what is happening here? Right. That's what I got curious about. And I'm like, there's some things that I'm seeing. First of all, oopsie. I learned that from Catalyst with his sometimes he does that. So I've learned that I can delete these boxes and then end up with a canvas. One of the things that I've noticed was the move from, thinking about it linearly to thinking about it non-linearly in terms of a flow. Now, Catalyst had shared that he, on his whiteboard, he thinks in terms of flows. So there's a connect the dot theme later on in the email, but there's also the flow that he's outlining of connecting the dots. So what I was thinking was, well, first, I feel responsible for that flow. So I had published some things and he responded back, but he's playing tennis with me and I'm playing tennis with him back on this flow. Then he's adding other people. So there's a kind of a flow that's happening of adding Walter and Dave and other people into this. And what I was sharing with him before is, in this idea that I had, and the challenges that I had was, it seems that if I keep it simple, whatever's happening along this flow line, only Catalyst sees. And if I am detangler here, and I only see one thing happening. But maybe now that I'm processing it, I see some of these things happening, but I wouldn't see all of them. And the question was, does that matter? And why does that even matter? If I see, that's an eyeball. If I see that flow or not. So in an old lens, I would take a view that, how do we take all those steps, the 7 steps, and I break them down into, a project plan, which I wouldn't do here, but, let's capture this and make sure it happens, and somebody needs to drive it. But when I'm thinking in terms of flow and I have a role in it, I'm thinking more in terms of, I have a puzzle piece, other people have a puzzle piece, and there's a puzzle piece that everybody has. The question is to me is, what's in the middle, and does it matter if I see what's in the middle or not? So if this is me as detangler, do I understand what we're doing and I contribute to it? If everybody does that and contributes to that, the question is what emerges. Something emerges. And that something could be from nothing, and it could be serendipitous and all that things. So I wanted to practice this something emerging. So what I've done is I've tried to use the orb to structure this out in what I see, how I processed the list from an activities perspective to more of an action perspective, with the goal of what I perceive to be connecting dots. And when we connect the dots and things in terms of flow, and it's a river of dot connecting, I have a role to play in that, and maybe I see some other things. And the question that I wonder sometimes is, does it matter if I see it or not? Right? Does it matter if I know what the flow is and what I see? And so what I wanted to do is say, okay, well, what can I do? First of all, I'm very thankful that I'm going to get help on tangles. So that makes me very happy. And then I'm also curious about what's going to emerge. Now, so I'm curious, and that's not how you spell curious, and thankful, and optimistic about tangled. That's one lens. The other lens is I create work for others, right? And I think about that, but that I can't think that way, because I'm providing an opportunity through my curiosity and through my questions for us to create something new. And that something new could be, shared understanding, which is cool, right? So what is what are we creating by connecting the dots is, shared understanding. So I feel like I need to erase this little thing in here. So shared understanding is going to emerge now. So what does that do, right? So I have shared understanding. This is above the line and below the line. Above the line, I'm curious, I'm optimistic, I'm thankful. By participating and putting energy in motion, and motion into this process, we're going to create some shared understanding, and I got to keep my negative thinking in check. So what will be created? I don't know. The idea of structure, we don't have it. We don't necessarily have a structure that's repeatable and consistent. So if I go up here, empathy, architecture, and tangles, empathy, architecture, and the tangles themselves, what this could emerge to is a structure to help me create tangles. So a structure that leads to tangles, powered by us. So what are the ingredients to making that happen? Well, it's people participating and putting their energy in, and it's also me doing what I can do, right, to toast these things out. So what can I do to toast out tangles? Well, one of the things is, what are tangles in the first place? And how I visualize tangles is I kind of think of them as a ball and chain. This is a chain here. This thing is a tangle that holds you back from breaking through. So this is a brick wall, and I'm building out these bricks here. Tedious work on I'm doing tedious work on building a brick wall. Wow, look at that. So I've got my brick wall. This brick wall, what does this represent? It represents the barrier to innovation, is how I see it. And the tangle keeps me in the status quo. It helps me, live in the past. So the tangle helps me live in the past, and I hit the wall, 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 and I just bounce back. And there's two things that are happening. One is the tangle keeps me from breaking through the wall, and then two, the wall doesn't budge. So it becomes a force. It's about willpower, because I realize that the skills I have aren't going to get me there. So there's a mental thing and a skill thing that tangles create. I can develop skills to help me break through this, but it's the mentality piece that keeps me going at it. And over time, eventually a crack happens. And this process of cracking through this wall, the more tangles I have, the more time it takes. So this takes, a long time. Tick, 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 tick. Of course, I have to bring time up into it, right? And it makes me very sad. So it's negative energy. So because I'm living in the past and because I'm tangled, my skills don't get me through the wall. And eventually I run out of willpower. The tangle has won and declared victory. and I've run out of time. So tangles hold me back from getting through the wall. They also prevent the action that I need to take to innovate. Okay. So eventually I can break through the wall. And that means two things have happened when I think about tangles. I think about them in terms of, one, I've severed the ball and chain, and two, I've tunneled through here. Okay, so I've broken the tie, so I've detangled, I've unlocked, and then I've figured out how to get through here. And it's getting through the wall. And to get there, and this is very inside out, right? This is very force of will, force of skill, emerging skills and force of will that gets me through. And eventually, I pop out the other side and, I can smile again. So for me to get through this here, this wall, I can't bring this huge ball and chain with. I have to learn how to detangle it and make this less manageable. Tangles don't go away, but they can become, more manageable. They can become smaller to help me get through the tunnel and get me through over to here. And then, unleash new skills. So this is how I see tangles, is anything that prevents taking action to get to the other side. They are perception, oriented, where it's about skills, and they can be linked to motivation, which is will. If I don't have the skill or the will power to figure out how to break this and set myself free from the tangle, I won't get through. So this tunnel is a physical emotion. It feels like going through and popping out the other side. So my thoughts are, the more I learn to detangle, the faster I can break through the wall and help others break through the wall. The smaller I can make tangles, I can make them more manageable. And the quicker, the faster people can get through, and we can have happy times over here. So tangles are anything that prevents that action and prevents that breakthrough. And it can be a skill thing or a will thing. That's currently how I define tangles. So that's my toast tangle and my processing of what Catalyst is asking. And yeah, that's making toast for my detangler. And I believe this is all I need to do. And I'm going to put it out and move on. And I'm going to delete this. And I'm not going to save it because it's about getting it out of my head and sharing. All right. Take care. Have a good one.